For as niche as the One's Justice series has been, I always saw it had potential. I recently revisited the first One's Justice, did my written review, and right there you can read that I would love to see them build on this foundation despite the poor game feel and lack of features. Now, when One's Justice 2 came out, there were definitely some new features added to the combat system, and obviously the roster got a lot bigger. But did they actually build up on the original the way we expected them to? Today I'm revisiting the game and letting you know all about it. I've been reviewing games for over 10 years as a YouTuber, but now I'm trying to become a verified reviewer on Metacritic, and for that, I need some good old-fashioned written reviews. This is my journey reviewing 50 games in 50 weeks, or until Metacritic accepts me. I'm running out of pages. In my original One's Justice 2 review, I praised the improvements done to combat and to mission mode, but criticized the online and story modes for having basically remained the same. I gave it a B at the time, which was higher than the score I gave One's Justice, and that would make this a 7 or 8 out of 10 on today's scale. Let's see if I still think that. Well, the first thing you'll notice with the sequel is just how much bigger the roster is. Some of this is DLC now, but even without those characters, the game went from 23 characters at the end of One's Justice to 40 characters at the launch of One's Justice 2. And I find the roster increase really impressive because of how One's Justice treats its characters in gameplay. There are no copy-pasted actions or movesets, every character plays in a very unique way, following different fighting game archetypes, while at the same time being incredibly loyal to how they fight in the show. To me, that was always the most impressive thing about One's Justice, so I do not take this roster increase lightly. The stage count also increased, but this one did not improve the game in my opinion. A lot of the stages added are simply terrible, and while the casual fan might be happy to see more environments, these stages then show up in online and ranked matches, and I don't think the fan service is worth suffering through having to play in some of these in ranked. This is why having less stages is not always a bad thing in my opinion, but I know I'm in the minority when I hear you guys yelling on Twitter. They also added some stages with breakable grounds, trying to emulate a stage transition of sorts, but it never felt good or powerful to trigger these, and they double down on the amount of objects you can break in each stage by simply dashing through them, which makes them feel like they're made of paper. I really don't get the point of this. In gameplay, there are a lot of small changes we could talk about, but overall I think they targeted their biggest issue, which was game feel. The game is still floaty, it's still got that awkward wall combat and big recovery on some moves, but basic actions like dashing no longer have a ton of recovery. The game feels snappier than before, and part of that I feel it's because of the new dodges. You can now dodge on the ground or in the air at the cost of a bit of stamina, basically giving you a new movement ability that allowed players to move around a lot better in combat. It also added a few unintentional glitches or combo extensions that would later be a problem. In fact, to me, this was the game that solidified Biking as the studio that cannot balance the game to save their lives, because every time they fixed something, they broke two other things. Another big change was infinite dash cancels. Previously, you could only do one dash cancel before landing, and I liked optimizing combos based on that limitation, but now you can dash cancel as many times as you want, as long as you have meter. It spends a little bit every time you do it, and I think this change sucks. The combos in One's Justice were already long enough in my opinion. This has made them significantly longer. You can also use this on block for some crazy pressure or to cancel unsafe moves, encouraging players to just throw out more unsafe stuff and pray for a hit, because you can always dash cancel it. I've hated this change since day one, and after more than 200 hours on this game, I have to say my mind has not changed, especially since I revisited the first One's Justice not that long ago. It has only made me angrier at the infinite dash cancels. I really think it was a dumb decision. It's not all bad though. I like how armor interacts now, with two armored moves no longer clashing but instead breaking each other. I like the new guard cancel to counter the impossible pressure you can apply now. Like, there are guaranteed unblockable setups in this game, so having the option to guard cancel to get out of it during block stun is definitely essential. And my favorite addition was probably assist supers. You can choose to spend your meter with your assist instead of your main character, something that at the time I actually didn't value that much, but looking back on it now, I think it's great for player expression and sauce. If I'm just looking at the basic gameplay, I do like One's Justice 2 better than the first one, but it's closer than you think. It comes down to game feel. The huge recovery on everything you did was annoying in the first game, but I think a lot of the systems they added on the second game made it worse. I'd love to see the best of both worlds, the first One's Justice systems with the feel of One's Justice 2, but I guess it's pointless to dream of that, since we all know the series went in a completely different direction now. That said, this isn't the only thing that disappointed me with the sequel. Story mode was the same as the first game. Anime slideshows, slightly animated, all voice acted, sure, but felt kinda pointless for someone who has already watched the show, and is not a great way of experiencing the show for the first time. So once again, I don't know who this story mode is for. That's not to say there were zero improvements. They did add a couple of CG cutscenes that look great, but there were too few of them for it to be anything significant. And in gameplay, it's all still versus battles, with the exception of one boss fight. Only one. And not a very fun boss fight in my opinion. So yeah, while technically story mode did improve slightly, it's too small of an improvement to even remember honestly. Mission mode, on the other hand, improved greatly. This is kind of an arcade mode where you gotta clear a whole board of enemies before they deplete each area's health. While at the same time, being an RPG where the more you fight, the more you level up, and this time you can actually level up your stats as you play. It's very basic stats, attack, defense, and HP, but it's already an improvement over last time. They also paint this whole game mode as a hero agency where you recruit heroes by spending some coins, and if you fail too many missions, you gotta recruit them again. But my favorite improvement is the symbol system. You can equip these symbols that look like cards that have passive buffs. You unlock a ton of these over time, and you can use them to make some really interesting builds. The cool thing is, your opponents also have these builds, and sometimes it's a good idea to check what they are. Like this asshole right here is gonna recover his health when he reaches 1 HP, and greatly increase both his attack and defense when he does. He stole my build. What the hell? But he also has a card that reduces the timer, so beating his health twice with a defense buff is pretty challenging. Oh, twice. That's why they did it. I get it now. Oh, never mind. Overhaul has the same buffs. Even if you lose, you still keep the XP you earned and can spend it on your character, so you can try again later when you are stronger.
Quiet, Bucko! Explosive! That's a great maneuver! Oops, you're so slow! There you go!
It's a game mode that I definitely didn't appreciate enough back then. Not when the first game came out, and definitely not when the second one did either. And if we did value it more, maybe things could have been different with All's Justice. I feel like I've definitely learned to value different single player game modes better. The story mode feels like it's always the biggest investment, the biggest focus, even with the marketing saying relive the My Hero Academia story. But in anime games, story mode is often not the best single player mode, nor should it be treated as such. And I think that's definitely the case here. Mission mode is just vastly superior. Now, online is probably where I spent the most time with this game, and it was really sad to see just how little they cared about it. There were virtually zero improvements to online, despite it needing a lot of love. The netcode is still solid, I'll give them that, but the game was still lacking a real ranked system, still lacking lobbies that held more than 2 players. The one thing they added was this 2v2 mode, which sounds fun. One player would play the point character, while another would call the assists, but it had some dumb restrictions that made it pointless. You could only join with a friend if both of you were playing locally. Think about that for a second. This is a 4-player game mode, but you can only do it if you have a friend playing locally against 2 other players that are also playing locally. And despite them being local, you still needed 2 PlayStation accounts, both with PlayStation Plus. This basically killed the game mode right at launch. No one was playing this. And it's annoying to see the main online features receive no love when they put a lot of time developing this game mode that no one has actually played. As a final note, the customization is still pretty cool. They give you a lot of freedom on customizing each character. Some players naturally took this a bit too far and made characters that look like absolute garbage, but it's cool that the system even allows for that in the first place. To be very honest, I thought I'd have a better time today revisiting One's Justice 2. I do have some fond memories of this game, but checking it out this close to the first One's Justice, I was hit with disappointment after disappointment. Besides the roster increase, I find the improvements here really hard to justify a sequel, and ultimately, I think that's what I have to write. One's Justice 2 still stands out as one of the deepest and most unique arena fighters in the world, but the lack of features and improvements makes this a disappointing sequel. Would I rather play One's Justice 2 over the first one? Yes, but it's a lot closer than I thought before doing this deep dive. I don't prefer the second game that much to increase its score over the first, so to me they kinda live in the same space. It's better, but marginally so, and ultimately I would call that a disappointing sequel. That said, if you skipped the first one and only went straight to the second, I can see you liking it a lot more than me, because you didn't have that base expectation going in. Review number 12 done. In case you missed it, the Avatar and Tokon reviews also went up on the website. Those also count for this series, but I did skip a couple of weeks, so we'll have to catch up on those soon. Next review is probably going to be Captain Tsubasa 2, as that's coming out next week, so the catching up is gonna have to wait. That said, if there's a review you'd like me to revisit, let me know in the comments down below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. My name's Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye!